I don't care about abortion and gay marriage. Supreme Court rant. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and as we approach the midterm elections and we still have a national political landscape dominated by Republicans, with a Supreme Court justice that recently explained that he was going to be retiring soon, and some others that are quite old, and I believe 2 that need to be appointed in the meantime, there's a fair amount of talk about who is going to be interpreting the Constitution of our nation in the future. Thus, being that leftists and Democratic Party supporting type people are culturally my tribe, as somebody who has lived exclusively in far leftist urban bubbles my entire life, and I still interact with them on social media very regularly, I have been hearing a lot about 2 things in particular. Basically, they sound like this. Oh my God, the sky is falling. Donald Trump is a far-right religious wacko because Mike Pence is his vice president, which means that he's gonna appoint evangelical Supreme Court justices to please his base so that he will get reelected, and then those justices are gonna overturn Roe v. Wade and marriage equality and maybe legalize prayer in schools. No. Obviously, I think that attitude is a bit hyperbolic itself, as I don't think that the religious right really has all that much influence over Trump's policies, which is not surprising because how many times have you heard Mike Pence's name brought up over the past year and a half? As far as I can tell, Trump's attitude has not been of full religious pandering, and it certainly hasn't cost him any loss of support from his base, who still loves him according to approval ratings. More so, while the left is panicking and having a nervous breakdown over gay marriage and abortion rights, I have to be honest and let everybody know that I'm simply not. That I don't care, and that I'm not sure if it's just that I have compassion fatigue, or if it's the fact that these issues have literally never concerned me all that much, and I think they never will. Here's the thing about abortion. I'm a gay guy, so I just don't care, and you can't make me. I don't have to care. I do not want to care, and even if I did, you abortion-loving feminists would be the first people to tell me that I am not qualified to care in any way, because I am a gay man that doesn't have a uterus and is also somebody that has no possibility of accidentally impregnating a woman anyway. Thus, you feminists who probably want me to care now would also be the first to tell me that my opinion about abortion is completely invalid if I ever bothered to offer it, which has come up in the past when I tried to have a civil discussion about whether or not it was completely morally acceptable to abort a fetus after the first trimester. I'm not exaggerating in the slightest when I say that I was once a teenager that meekly posed the question, well, if a fetus is starting to develop and has a heartbeat, is it entirely fair to act like it doesn't have any rights at all in any way? And I was told point blank that my opinions, or even questioning around the subject, were not welcome nor valid because I am a homosexual male and that it's a woman's body, so I need to shut up and stay in my lane. Were they nice about it? No, of course not. They never are. I was treated as if I was being sexist for even bringing that up, despite the fact that, by the way, a lot of unborn fetuses that might be aborted might end up as a homosexual man like myself someday, but, you know, it's a woman's body we're talking about, not the person inside them, because it's not a person, it's a fetus, and it isn't real, it doesn't count, and it doesn't matter who it might end up being. Ah! Ultimately, My stance on abortion ended up being that I think it should probably be an option because that's seemed like the thing to say, but the only reason I really feel that way is probably mainly because I was bullied into feeling that way after prolonged, vehement defensiveness from the straight leftists and especially female feminists in my life, who seemingly would sooner claw their own eyes out than feel guilty about having an abortion. That being said, being that I actively wasn't allowed to have an opinion around this subject as a gay man who merely occasionally wanted to pose a fairly simple and common philosophical question about when human life begins, I never developed any strong attachment to abortion rights or pro-choice arguments, even though I claimed to side with them. Feminists actively shut down the opportunities for me to have a conversation and be convinced that abortion was acceptable, and so, surprise, surprise, I remain unconvinced to this day. Now, should abortion be safe and legal? I guess so. That sounds good. You know, the safe part. I like safe. But on the flip side, should women be going around having unprotected sex regularly and then getting abortions as a backup plan after they forget their birth control? Well, maybe the world would be a better place if they didn't do that. So I'm torn. Thus, I have to step back a little bit and remind myself of the consistent truth that has been present ever since I first noticed that I was getting a little bit of a boner when I saw Mark Wahlberg posing in Calvin Klein advertisements in the early 1990s. The truth is that more than anything, I don't care. And I don't have to care because I'm gay anyway. The people who I was supposed to be siding with about this issue over the course of my entire life as a leftist never gave me a great reason to actually care, and I'm still not entirely sure why pro-life activists care about abortion so incredibly much that they are willing to commit acts of terror against abortion clinics. But ultimately, one gay privilege I have is that I just don't care, and you can't make me. But Prince, your callous and self-serving attitude might seem all fine and good when you're allowing your sisters to have our bodies controlled by white male politicians. And maybe that's a pattern with you because you're a white male anyway, so maybe that's who you'll always side with. But I bet you'll care when those same straight white male politicians take away your right to marry. I bet you never thought about that, huh? Wow, Felicity. You're really a political science genius. You think ahead. 4D chess. I didn't remember that all oppression is connected and comes from the white male patriarchy, but now that you mention it, no, I actually don't really care all that much about gay marriage and never have. I have always been one of the gay guys that would have been perfectly happy with civil unions, and after learning a bit about the way our federal government demands that states legally recognize gay marriage, I think it's kind of a little bit strange. Here's the thing. Ultimately, the only real purpose I see behind marriage at all is allowing couples easy access to next of kin type relationships so that they can make important medical decisions for their partners and maybe inherit their wealth. Sometimes married couples save money on taxes, I guess, though there are people who argue that most often married people end up paying more taxes, so honestly, the verdict is out for me on that part. Still, I do think that it should be easy for individuals to be able to sign a pre-existing contract, kind of like a marriage certificate, that allows an individual to have the primary authority to make emergency decisions and allows them to access one's estate after they die and other such things if they built a life together. However, what I don't demand and will never demand is that we call it marriage. Why? Because I really don't care what we call it. I care what it is and what it does. Yes, I understand that the symbolic title of the word marriage does, in fact, make it slightly more likely on a cultural level that gays and lesbians will be treated as equals to straight people. But in recent years, I've started becoming accepting of a certain reality that I didn't entirely want to admit to myself for most of my life. Gays and lesbians aren't equal to straight people. We are very different in the same type of way that women and men aren't equal to each other, but they are different. There is no point in pushing square pegs into round holes, and to be perfectly honest, we've seen far too many gays and lesbians trying to do that in an unnatural way over the years, which never really works out all that well. Perhaps if the mainstream gays learned to just accept the fact that they are different to heterosexuals, and that they always will be, things might be a little bit better for gays as a whole. Maybe some gay guys could be relatively normal, but still slightly different, because they always will be, and then we wouldn't get a whole bunch of radical, queer, intersectional, activist, non-binary wackos trying their best to be freaks all the time. Now, I'm sure they will always be around, but it might take the wind out of their sails just a little bit if even the conformist gays admitted that gays are, in fact, different than heterosexuals. No, I certainly don't have a problem with married gay men. I know numerous married gay men, and I'm glad that they have a legally contractual way to celebrate their union as life partners or whatever. But do I care that we call it marriage? No, I really don't. And you can't make me. Because at the end of the day, I probably would never get a marriage anyway, personally. And if I did, it would only be after like 50 pages of prenuptial agreements anyway. That all said, I can't really care all that much about the Supreme Court at this moment. And if these are the only two issues that you can throw on the table to try to make me care, it's simply not going to work. You can't first tell me that I'm not allowed to have an opinion about abortion and then cry your little eyes out that I won't defend your right to have these abortions. And you can't force me to care about the literal name of a contract that I probably won't ever sign myself anyway. Thus, if there are some different issues that should be addressed that I should be fearful of regarding Trump's Supreme Court appointees, well, please address those issues instead, because I'm sure I can't be the only one that wants to hear what they are.